All right, these are from apparition poems. This is number 1327. She said, "You want sister lovers, you son of a bitch?" Pouted on a beige couch in Plastic City. I said, "I want sister lovers, but I'm not a son of a bitch, and I can prove it." I drooled slightly, took it out, and we made such spectacular love that the couch turned blue from our intensity. But I had to wear a mask because I'd been warned that this girl was, herself, a son of a bitch. Number 1335. Terse as this is, it is given to us in bits, carelessly shorn from rocky slopes. Of this I can only say nothing comes with things built in. It's always sharp edges, crevices, crags, precipice, abrupt plunges into wants. What subsists between us happens in canyons lined in blue orders, where this slides down to a dense bottom. I can't retrieve you twice in the same way. It must be terse because real is terse, tense because it's so frail. Pine cones held in a child's hand, snapped. Number 1345. Two hedgerows with a little path between. To walk in the path like some do, as if no other viable route exists. To make gods of hedgerows that make your life tiny is a sin of some significance in a world where hedgerows can be approached from any side. I said this to a man who bore seeds to an open space, and he nodded to someone else and whistled an old waltz to himself in annoyance. Number 1476. Days follow days off cliffs. Do these things we do have any resonance? Do they rise into the ether? Or are they to be ground down into pulp, briefly making earth sodden, then dissipated dust, scattered over plains too vast, blasted with winds, rains, storms, to be counted or harvested? Number 1480. How horrendous to realize there are people in the world with no soul, walking zeros, hollow spaces, dead-end interiors, permanently frozen faculties. How horrendous to watch how they borrow words of others to sound profound. But each echo reveals there's nothing behind it but the kind of charred silence that comes after a corpse is burnt. How horrendous how it makes some of us cling to what we feel, how we feel, that we feel, and that everything we feel is so precious, specifically and only because it is felt and stays felt. Number 1488. This is for Julia. Liquor store, linoleum floor, wine she chose was always deep red, dark, bitter aftertaste, unlike her bare torso, which has in it all that ever was of drunkenness. To miss someone terribly, to both still be in love, as she severs things because she thinks she must. Exquisite torture. It's a different bare torso, my own, that's incarnadine. Number 1509. Myths are made of us, we who spin myths from this happenstance life, which is hewn of rocks, books, lies, truths, loves, hangings of all these things. In myths we are heroes, braggarts, martyrs, rogues, angels, murderers, and assholes. But myths go on sans us, who only wanted slightly more than gods gave us, and so made ourselves gods. Bugger any odds against us. Number 1511, this is for Lily. Steps up to my flat, on which we sat, tongues flailed like fins, on sea of you, not me. But we thought, or I thought, there'd be a reprieve in between yours for us to combine. You were terribly vicious. This is our end, here amidst I and I. Does she even remember this obscure island lost in Atlantis? Number 1514. This is for a certain someone in the great city of angels, Los Angeles. You can't get it when you want it, but when I want it, I get it. She rolled over on her belly, which was very full, and slept. It's just shadows on the wall, I thought. Dark. Number 1546. This is for Laura. What a tussle it was, I could only see her eyes, tiny bits of red above, stark, blank blueness. I felt animal fear between us, but a poltergeist was pushing our bodies into one another. Dead flesh inhabited by spirits, for the time nothing came from our mouths, dead liveliness, deep into the wolf's hour this went on. Our eyes couldn't close. Number 1651. What's this about making moves, said the apprentice. I've got irons in the fire with all these pieces. Isn't that enough? To have mastered how the fire works so that each piece burns right down. It's not the only move that matters, but as I just made a line of rooks rather than pawns, what else could possibly get my goat? The master heard this, appearing limber, but quite chained to the voices that were taking away the tools he used put his apprentices in their places. I have nothing to say about this, he said, as he wiped beads of sweat from a brow that furrowed so intensely that all his enemies insisted he had dark ties. Just make rows of rooks instead of pawns, and you will find yourselves kings and queens. They all left him that night, after dumping the ashes in a river that ran in back of the workshop into a black sea. Number 1645, and this goes out to all of my fathers. The father's gaze, depending which gaze you happen to be referring to, is panoptic. It goes in without leaving traces. So if you have several fathers that leave no traces, and merely invisible gazes, there is or may be a sense in which you have no fathers. I saw all this happening to me, along with everything else, many years ago, before I could visualize the cell I was in, before I knew how the walls stank of fresh paint, or saw that I was getting smeared at any juncture. But as I saw this, my father, who was my father, turned, spoke down to me in such a way that I listened. I took what he said, gazed at my cell, and watched the paint dry deep into the night before I busted out to watch the dawn break over the Delaware. Number 1613. This is dedicated to the faculty of Penn State University, where, it's a little known fact, I did 3 years worth of philosophy work when I was a very, very young man. 1613. Follow Abraham up the hill. To the extent that the hill is constituted already by kinds of knives, to what extent can a man go up a hill, shepherd a son to be sacrificed, to be worthy before an almighty power that may or may not have had conscious intentions where hills, knives, sons were concerned? But how, as I watch this, can I not feel that Abraham, by braving knives, does not need the one he holds in his wrapped hands? Number 1602. I want to dedicate this to the city of brotherly love. I stepped like a mantis off this ship of fools, felt around for prey, found a plate of ants to put in a microwave. I saw how they scurried briefly, put it into text that had the heat of ovens in it, shipped this text across vast oceans. It preyed on suspicions, was placed on plates. Now that I have prayed, I am, or may be, redeemed. But every step I take feels like a scurry, as the fools are more numerous than I thought, just like ants. This one is number 1603, and I would like to dedicate this poem to all the females born under the astrological sign of Gemini. Be careful what you handle, I told her. You can get to me even if you touch another. It happened in an office shaped like the foyer of a huge hovel, built of mud, etchings of bugs on the wall, perfect, perverse kids scampering among clods. You know what I want and how I can get it, she replied, and she took another out, put me in, but only inside a brain used amiss to find a level that was shaped like a foyer, past office, into brick, sans mud. This is number 1584. No particular dedication. The condition of being kidnapped by angels. That's what good art must impose on a willing audience. Who is this guy talking to? Are we meant to believe this romantic bullshit? Ah, who cares? It'll pass. He was walking his dog, thinking. It was a sunny day in suburbia. The concrete really was, and I mean this, concrete. But this is the thing. I do believe what this guy says, his romantic bullshit. I see things. You know what I mean? Number 1576 is dedicated to all the lovely poetry ladies of the city of San Francisco. Who told poets to be poets? Nobody tells anyone things like this anymore. Poetess, she comes to me with this. It's all wine and roses for 2 nights, but I'm left dizzy. Is this the end of poetry? There's a war between poetry and sex. It's always sex's dominance we fight. She tells me this, but we still make love. And it's good and hard. I'm pure in this, I tell myself. I know what I'm doing. I do, too, in ways limited by perspectives, of which this is half of one. Is it enough?